Hey everyone, we're going to start. We know some of you have to leave to catch planes at certain points as we go on in the afternoon. So before we start, we just want to say we love you guys. It's been so great to spend time with you this weekend. And if you need to leave, whenever you need to leave, no problem. Just do what you need to do.
Yeah. I do wonder though why you would
want to
do
leave.
Such a thing.
Don't even give yourself a moment's pause to reflect on the...
Before you have to rush out the door.
Yeah.
Stay an extra day and ponder. I know many of you have got family and everything you feel you've got to rush back to, but that's a part of those injuries we were talking about earlier with Gus, weren't they? All right. How are we doing? It was interesting having a chat with those spirits, yes? With Luther and... Yeah. Yep. Everyone's got experiences. It's lovely when you find a bit more out about people, isn't it?
Yeah, learning from experiences.
Yeah. So where do we go now? Is it up to me? It is.
Did everybody do homework? Any homework? Some homework? Yeah? Yeah. Was it challenging or? Yes. Yeah.
It was amazing.
It's good? Yeah.
Yeah.
It made me realize.
Can we have the
wait for
microphone
mine.
before you... Yep. So, made you realise what, Oz?
So it made me realize that I was asking God to get rid of my pain and it made me realize that I have not been following divine truth. I've been doing natural love instead of... So that was very humbling and I feel very grateful to the two of you, and I guess I'll start from scratch, right?
Yeah.
Accepting that, I really have no clue. That I'm just now about to start understanding, I guess, divine love principles.
Yeah, that's a good observation.
Yeah.
Many of us sort of are in the state, aren't we, where we hear a thing and then we think we're doing the thing.
Yeah,
and
that was me.
Yeah, and then of course you can see how arrogance can even build in that state, can't they? With the people around you, you think you know the thing, and you think you're doing the thing.
Right.
If only everyone else would do the thing that you're doing, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's not obviously a humble place. A humble place is getting to the place of sincere ignorance where you don't think you're doing the thing, and you start to wonder, well, what is the thing in the first place that you thought you did understand, but obviously because there's been no real effects from what you're doing, obviously you didn't understand.
Right. I didn't.
Yeah.
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 So that's a very good observation.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes, up the back. A bit closer with the mic.
Yeah. So what I realized by the end of the day, because I was really having an emotional reaction and wanted to share and do the right thing, ask the right question, just overwhelmed with it all, and then the shame of the political situation here and the process I've gone through. I went through all this stuff yesterday.
Yep.
But by the end, I was leaving here with the feeling of I don't trust my own desires from the other side, the center.
Yeah.
But and I don't trust myself and my soul, and what I really discovered was I don't trust God.
Yeah.
I don't trust God.
Yeah.
Like that's where the gap is. It's not about me and what, am I clean enough or sin? It's my
Exactly
relationship
right.
with God.
Yeah.
I got it now.
Yeah,
I guess start at zero.
Yeah. So fundamentally, when you're not engaging your emotion, you're not seeing your beliefs, you're not seeing your sexual behaviour, you're not sort of doing all of those things. Fundamentally, the real issue is not so much with you in the sense that you can't make changes or anything. The fundamental problem becomes, do I trust God enough to lead me through this process and trust that that's how He designed me? He designed me to cope with everything, to deal with everything. And the fact is that if we've acted in sin, God designed you to even be able to get rid of your sin. right? Which is a very fortunate thing if you think about it, isn't it? It's like designing a self-cleaning car. Imagine that. You drive it through the mud and it comes out clean the other end. Like, that's how God designed your soul. You can drive through the mud, end up with mud on you, but you can still come out clean at the end as long as you follow the principles that are going to get you there. And like humans at this stage have hardly any knowledge about how to design something that's self-managing, self-maintaining, self-cleaning. And yet you see God doing it everywhere. Even the earth itself, self-cleaning. You know, it's doing its best to clean up our mess. You know, you see even a lot of the insects we have on earth, there's not insects and not many insects in the spirit world. Most of them are in the physical environment. Any creature that doesn't have a central nervous system doesn't get to live in the spirit environment. And so a lot of these creatures that are fascinating creatures are all there to clean up after you. Mm-hmm. You know, even some of them are cleaning up your skin and everything. Because as you know, you drop dead skin everywhere. You drop your DNA everywhere, right? And there's creatures cleaning all that up for you as well. And so God designed this sort of universe of which the pinnacle of his creation is you, and he designed you to be able to be self-cleaning as well, which is all about really understanding how to deal with your sin. Yeah. Very important to come to trust God and God's designs.
Yeah. And it helps with your sincere ignorance so much, because if you can trust God, you think, well, I actually don't have to have it all figured out. I just have to listen well, be humble, observe the laws that are happening having an effect on me and around me, and I'm going to be educated.
So imagine for a moment that you have children. Some of you do have children, so you don't need to imagine, right? But if you don't, imagine that you do. And if your child exhibited this desire, so remember we used the word desire, you know, from day one, didn't we? You can desire things that are bad for you. So if your child desires ignorance, how do you feel about your child? It's very frustrating trying to teach a child when it desires ignorance. Have you found that? Yeah? It's like the child is there, like looking at them over the phone, just gazing at things and getting their addictions met the whole day, right? And they don't desire to engage anything out of that. They just desire ignorance of life, ignorance of how to create a life, ignorance about how to look after themselves, ignorance about how to interact with others. And the child's just doing that all the time. How do you feel as the parent? Frustrated, like, what is going on with my but not only frustrated, worried for their future, don't you? You worry that they're not even going to be able to look after themselves or care for themselves in their future, right? So you can see there'd be some level of concern that if there's free will, you're allowed to do what you want, but at the end of the day, that's not a very good thing to want, right? Now imagine also if your child has desired arrogance. So everything you said to your child, even when you knew it for a fact to be true, and they said, no, I don't believe that. No, I know better than that. And the child is there like only having a limited amount of life, you could say, experience, and yet they're telling you that you don't know what you're doing and they do, right? As a parent, how would you find that? I have 3 sons like that. Yeah. But how many of us are doing that with God? We're saying, God, you don't know what you did to us. You know, you made us a bit of a mess, and look now, like, look at what you've done. It was all your fault, right? You gave us free will. How stupid is that? Like, this is the kind of things we have towards God, like this arrogant feeling. Now, of course, it's very hard in that state, when the child is in that state. Can they feel here in desired ignorance? Can the child feel you're trying to teach them for their own benefit? No. The child is unaware, completely unaware in that state of desired ignorance of your motivation just to help them in their life. Mm-hmm. In other words, the child is unaware of what love is. You understand? Here in desired arrogance, in the child is rejecting truth, rejecting facts, rejecting and creating a fiction in their life, rejecting everything. Can they feel love in that place? No. Because they're just going to reject anything that they disagree with or are in disharmony with. And as a result, your love for them could be teaching them things like responsibility, but they don't want to learn it. They don't feel they need that. And as a result, they're not going to experience love in that state either. What if they desire approval all the time? Many of you have created children who desire approval all the time, right? They get to the stage where they just want to know that they participated is good enough. You know how now in schools they are, well, you might not know, but I think you do. In schools, they're now rewarding children just for participation. And they give them just the same grade as a person who got everything right. And I'm going, well, that's teaching the child a lot of things. It's saying, all I need to do is act like I'm participating with no desire to get the thing factual, and I'm going to get the same reward as a guy who wants it factual and who wanted to participate rather than just fake participate. That doesn't sound any good, and God's not interested in that. So what happens is that we have fed our children this approval for almost everything they do, even when what they do is unloving. Right? We feed them the same approval. Well, God doesn't do that. But if your child is like sometimes at home I call them like an octopus or a leech for approval, right? It sucks the life out of you. If everything you've got to do, everything you ask your child to do, everything the child does, it needs your approval first in order to do it, how exhausting is that? It's like you've got to be involved in your life 100% of the time, in their life, 100% of the time, in order for them to get anything done. And that's not what you want as a parent. What you want as a parent is they get to a stage of independence from you, where they're no longer needy for you the 100% of the time.
Yeah. And creating children who are requiring approval all the time actually erodes that child's sense of their own will and motivation. It actually decays it, because the only impetus they have for acting is to gain approval, and they don't experience the reward of
a pure desire.
Of a desire, an idea brought to fruition just for their own experience.
By their own effort.
Yeah.
They never understand what it's like to create something by yourself, ever. Right, so we could remember yesterday we had a long list of things we listed on this side about these are things preventing us getting to a stage of sincere ignorance. Remember we said that. So you can also see that if the child has these attitudes, it's very, very hard for the child to understand it's loved and understand that it has a life that it can lead independent of its parent, but in harmony with love. It has a lot of difficulty understanding all those things. Now, God is your parent and you are the child. So let's now put you in the position of the child, and let's try to examine for a moment what God must feel about you being ignorant, or you being arrogant, or you needing approval all the time, or you needing acceptance all the time, or you being angry all the time, or you being sad all the time without actually feeling any of these things, right? But actually acting in them all the time.
It's like, actually, isn't it? It's like, the terrible teenage years where it's like, everything's terrible. You don't know anything, Mum and Dad. I don't want to know. Shut up talking about that. And don't you know how hard everything is? And, that's kind of like what we're like with God, isn't it?
Yeah, we're like spoilt teenagers reacting to God and then saying to God, now I would like some love, thanks. But it's not really, I would like some love, thanks, either, is it? It's, I'm bloody well going to have love, thank you. You got to give it to me, and if you don't, you're a mongrel. You know what I mean? That's the real feeling that we have towards God. We are cursing God angry with God for not rescuing us, angry with God for making the system God made, angry with God and bitter about the fact that we've got to look at our own sin even though we created it, angry with God about all these different things. And as you can see, while we're in that state, it's impossible for us to experience love. So from God's perspective, God is ready to love you. God has done all the necessary things, including God's desire itself is there and present in order to love you. God has designed your soul so that it can feel God's love. God's designed the universe around you to support your learning so that you understand how to feel God's love. God's done everything to try to make you happy, including share the potentiality of sharing her divinity with you, which is what the love is, right? And yet, as petulant teenagers that we are, or you could almost call us spoilt little 2-year-old brats, right, for many of us, we are constantly in a state where we're not getting to the point where we're truly open and desirous of truth, but rather we're in a state where we're fighting it all the time, trying to stay away from it all the time. And particularly when it comes not to our intellect. See, many of us say, but I'm trying to learn divine truth. But in our intellect, we believe we are, right? But we're not understanding that the way we learn is a full experience. It's not an intellectual experience. It's an emotional, sensory, sexual, and belief system experience. It's not just a physical experience, right? So, or an intellectual one. And so we are convinced in ourselves, the more intellectual we become about our learning, and particularly when it comes to God's truth, the more intellectual we become more and more focused on believing that our intellect is the supreme ability of the human, when actually it is the least important part of you. The least important part of you. It is a tool that can aid the development of your soul, but is unnecessary for the development of your soul. Right? Instead, it's the other parts of you. Remember, we talked about the sensory, the sexual part of you, the emotional part of you, and the part of you that stores and manages experiences which come in the form of beliefs. This part of you is the thing that drives your passions, your desires, and eventually you will also learn your happiness. Or you could conversely say your lack of passion, your lack of desire, and your unhappiness. Couldn't you? If you don't develop them, yeah? Now, if you bear that in mind, you realise after a while, and this is a place I had to come to in this life, I came to a point in my 30s where I realised I knew nothing about any of that. Because I was living so much in my mind, in my intellect, that I really had stunted my ability to recall any parts of this, of my prior life. And in your case, we've stunted our ability to do it right from the time of birth. Now, we're not totally responsible for the fact that we stunted, because we were trained by others and society to stunt the development of those things. And then on top of that, we start to get to the stage where we start using some of these things in a dark and devious manner as well, where we start using our senses in a manner that finishes up destroying us. So for example, the sense of taste. Oh, things taste good. You work that out pretty soon as a child, don't you? There's things that taste good, and if you eat like cockroaches, they don't taste very good. So you learn out, well, there's things that taste good and there's things that don't taste good. But what we do once we learn that, we then taint that by choosing to get the things that only are affecting taste and no other part of us. So then the child, once it hits on the sugar, what does it do? It now wants sugar everything, doesn't it? And without there being any idea of the degradation to its body that will occur if it continues such behaviour, and because it's not necessarily sensitive to any part of the body by that stage because of the desensitisation of the environment, it's not going, oh, this sugar, while it's okay in small doses, it's not okay to live on it. Right? And so what they do is they keep imbibing these things, and what happens? Well, in their first set of teeth, probably rot. Right? Or the next set of teeth, they've got all sorts of problems with it, generally. Then on top of that, they've got stomach issues, they've got bowel issues, they've got issues with regard to the general health that start developing. And now, as anybody who's a doctor knows, now a lot of children like who had just turned teenagers have now got severe sicknesses because of their diet, primarily. And then on top of that, they keep eating these things, and eventually you get to the stage where you're fat, you're unhappy, you're unmotivated, you can hardly do anything else. So something that was nice got turned into a sensory part of you that was good, got turned into a weapon against yourself by you. And this is frequently what happens with all of these areas. We turn our emotions against ourselves. We turn our sexual behaviour against ourselves and others, of course, and our beliefs are even turned against ourselves, right? We're in this state where we're so shut down then, and we think we're functioning fine, and when we hear divine truth, we go, oh, all I've got to do is ask for divine love and I'll receive it. So we think that means that I can do that in an insincere manner and I'll receive it. And that's not true. Because God measures everything based upon the sincerity. Remember when we were talking to Luther, he talked about the word motivation. What is your motive? If your motive is insincere, you are automatically out of harmony with the laws of love. So if your motive is to gain some personal benefit, no matter what you do, no matter what it is, whether it's work or, life generally, or having children, or being a grandparent, or, just living in life, but any time you're in a state where you do it for your personal benefit, you are automatically insincere.
Your selfish benefit.
Your selfish benefit.
benefit.
Selfish benefit.
Yeah.
You're automatically insincere. So most of us don't realise how insincere we actually are with almost everything we do, right? And this is something we've got to get out of in order to receive God's love. Remember, this process was firstly getting to the point where we go, I now know that all of my motivations have been insincere. I now know that the majority of things that I choose to do are driven by the fact that I want them for myself, right? I know all of this about myself. Now that we do that, we can undo some of this, which is really the way we've used this is in a sinful manner. So these things themselves are not sin. None of them are sin. They're all things, abilities God gave your soul. But when you use them in a manner out of harmony with love, they become your sin. And unless you're prepared to identify your sin and work through your sins, you will never reach a point where your motive is sincere. And if your motive is no longer sincere and prayer is sincere longing, we've got a big problem when it comes to receiving God's love, because without the sincere longing, no love can be received. And if there's one thing that I'd like to leave you with, if you like, today, it's the necessity to develop the motivation to become sincere. Without the motivation to become sincere, you will not be sincere. And without sincerity, you cannot pray and expect to receive. If sincerity exists as God measures it, and you pray, you will receive. But if sincerity does not exist as God measures it, you will not receive from God. You might, of course, receive from others, but you will not receive from God. So in order for us to learn how to pray, the very first thing we really need to learn is how to be sincere. Can you see that? That's the very first thing we need to learn, how to be sincere. We also saw, didn't we, when we discussed pain, that when your desire is to avoid pain, you are automatically insincere. The reality is that our sin has created pain that is now stored in our own souls, and also our sin has created pain for others, right? Whether we acknowledge that or not, that is the truth. And so there is going to be pain to experience. So when you have the desire to avoid it, the desire to make it go away quickly, the desire to skip through it, the desire to deny it, the desire to run away from it or be angry about it, and all of those other desires you have, none of them are sincere with regard to your pain. A person who's sincere ends up going through the emotions to get to a point where they desire to feel all their pain. And as you saw from the discussion with Gus, when he arrived in the first sphere, he had to do it almost 100% of his time. Right? Now, in the third sphere, remember he said that a third of his time was still doing that, and then a third of his time was spent sharing truths with others, and a third of the time was spent discovering more truth for himself and experiencing a life. But in the first sphere, when he began this work, it was all encompassing. And this is what it's going to be like when you open the Pandora's box, which is the sin in your soul. Yeah. You understand? Now, in the Paget messages, there's a message that is there that I wrote to Paget, where I said to him, the biggest battle, he asked me whether I was present on the fields of death in the first century. It was the First World War. And he asked me whether I was present, and I said, well, it's not my work. My work is helping people begin the battle that begins inside of themselves. The battle that is between their error and truth. Their error being their sin, and the truth that can come from God. That's the battle you face. The battle you face is getting the truth that is outside of you into a state where it can be inside you. See, while the truth is outside you, it's not going to benefit you. For it to benefit you, it must be inside you. And the only way to get it inside you is to release the error that prevents it from coming inside of you. So I discussed this with Paget in that message. What did you say?
I just wanted to highlight that sin itself creates pain. And so unless we are willing to experience the reality of sin, which is pain inside of us, which is the first connection to truth that we have to have, until we're willing to experience the truth of the pain, which is created by the sin, and we can't experience the truth that's outside of us. We have to first experience the reality that's inside of us, and to experience it in a way that is not self-perpetuating, is not self-reinforcing, but experience it like Jesus discussed yesterday afternoon, in a way that we understand the truth of this is my sin, this is the mud that I'm I've been clinging to, now I can let it go, but only through experiencing the truth that this has created so much pain for myself and others. And that's really the basis of the repentance process when you involve God in that. And when you start to do that, then you literally make space for the truth that is outside of you to enter you.
So this brings me to a concept. What Mary just said there brings me to this concept. And that is the very first way you're going to receive God's love is by entering a state of repentance. I see many of you who are listening to Divine Truth go, what are my desires? What are my passions? What am I going to do the rest of my life? I'm really interested in that. But when we start talking about sin, everybody's, not sin again. But the very first experience you're going to have of God's love is by being repentant for one of your sins. Does that make sense to you? A person who's repentant examines their sin and wants to know what it is, wants to know what it's about. They're sincere about their sin. They're trying to seek for it. And the reason why is because they know that every sin prevents them from even exercising a sincere desire to receive anything else from God. Right? There's this fundamental sort of trust that you're going to have of this process when you begin. The fundamental trust being, I am not going to receive love from God unless I first see one of my sins. Now, if you were sinless, that would not be the case. If you were sinless, if you've been brought up by a sinless mother and father and you were sinless your entire life up until this point, when the very first experience you would have of receiving God's love would be based upon desire, a sincere longing only. But the problem, as we've pointed out, is that you can't be sincere while you have sin within you. On any issue, you can't be sincere about the issue while sin exists on the issue. So many of you don't realise yet, but you'll find out that actually with your families who you think you love, you're actually very insincere. You really don't love them the way God defines love to be. You'll also see the same with your friends, the way you live your life, even your love of self. You will start to see that. You haven't been very sincere about loving yourself, right? Because there's all these addictions that are actually the opposite of love that you've engaged, thinking that's love, but that's not love of self. So you can't even self-actualise, as the New Age people would probably say, without there being some recognition of what prevents a love of self, right? Repentance is the first step, right? Any person that enters sincere repentance with God receives God's love and forgiveness. Right? Would you like to ask?
Maya at the front there, yeah.
So Maya down the front here.
Sorry. So I'm wondering, kids are born sincere. Am I correct in saying that?
When you say born sincere, that's not really accurate, is it?
Okay.
No.
They are conceived sincere.
Well, Jay, can we even say that? Don't you have to develop? Is it an
Well,
expression
they're
of
conceived
will?
in sincere ignorance.
Yes.
Okay.
So what that means is when the child is conceived, the soul is in an ignorant state and it's sincerely in that state. Now it's fully ignorant about everything. It's never had an emotion, never had an experience, never had a memory, never had a... remember, all of those things make up our memories, but a child that's just newly conceived has none. They have no memories of any kind, no sexual memories, no emotional memories, no physical memories, no intellectual memories, no belief systems, no... If we look at
May I flip the board?
flip the board, right? It has literally none of those. It doesn't even know its own senses.
And also, in order to
Mary's disappeared.
in order to shift from sincere ignorance, we've talked a lot about reaching this place of sincere ignorance, but once you get there, you still have to develop a will and desire to learn.
Yeah.
So the newly conceived child is sincerely ignorant, but it doesn't understand its will yet. It hasn't engaged it, and it will have to exercise some will, some desire, to actually develop into the desire to learn.
And can I also say, a newly conceived child, as it starts developing and it's born, and then it starts having experiences, some of those experiences are forced upon it through its own development. So the experience of coming to walk, for example, the child develops enough where it can balance and other things, and then it starts to want to learn to walk because it sees everyone around it walking, and so it develops a sincere desire to learn how to walk. Does that make sense? And because it's a sensory truth, because learning to walk is all about your senses, right? They go through starting to learn how they use their senses, their sense of balance, their sense of control of their muscular systems. All of these things are learning as a part. And they want to because they see the result, which is mum and dad are walking and everybody else around, all my siblings are walking, I want to walk, right? So
that desire is there.
So it's got the desire.
It developed it by observation.
By observation, it developed desire to develop sensorially so that it can do the job of walking. And then when it fell over, it had an emotion. It hurt. But that didn't stop it because the desire was stronger than any pain. The desire to walk, like, so you see sometimes children fall down the stairs or fall off a balcony or fall off, and if they're able to walk afterwards, they get up and walk again, like usually within minutes. They have their big emotional release, and then they don't. After that, they don't even think about what happened 10 minutes ago. They're back up and walking again. Isn't that true?
Yes, that makes sense.
Now we know you didn't get to your question.
No,
yet,
no,
but
we know
sometimes-
that. But we wanted to give you some background of this is where the child is. The child at conception is in a state of sincere ignorance about all of its faculties, all of its soul faculties. And through experience of life, it starts to develop desires to fix some of them, to
engage
learn,
them. Yep.
to learn, to gain a truthful education. So you could say every single one of you got a truthful education about walking. Because now you all walk, right? So you must have got a truthful education somehow, otherwise you'd still probably be crawling or less, or not even moving at all, right? Yep. So now, if you ask your question...
No, that helped my question, yes. So I was wondering, is there at any point when we start to create our own sin, or we create our own sin right from the get-go?
Well, it depends upon how much ignorance we have in different areas and where we absorb our learning from. So let's say in your childhood, by the time you're born, from the time you're conceived to born, you're absorbing in particular your mother's feelings and emotions. So you're absorbing some of your mum's senses, some of your mum's sexual feelings, some of her emotions and some of her beliefs. You're absorbing that already, right? Before you're even born. To a bit lesser degree, you're absorbing also your father's because he's present and his soul emits emotion, and it emits sexual desires, and it emits sensory parts of the soul that you can't actually see, but it does emit them. And so the child is also receiving those. So by the time the child is born, which is different to conception, it's now not really in a state of sincere ignorance anymore about some things. It's now in a state where it has absorbed some of the multi-generational sin of its forefathers. Does that make sense to you?
Yes,
right?
so that's why we're fully responsible for our own sin and all of that, because from the get-go we were absorbing all that.
Yes, be careful there. Your parents, your forefathers are responsible for what they did to you.
Mm-hmm. So that sin that you're born with, you haven't had a chance to engage your will at all. So God doesn't hold you
That against
responsible
you.
for that. You don't compensate for that. But as you grow and learn and become more self-aware, because if you've ever seen a newborn baby, it doesn't even really know, oh, this is my hand, oh, that's my leg. It doesn't even know itself as a
Can look at its
different
own leg and
entity.
go, what's
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
I move it up and now I see it, and then I move it down and I don't. Now it must belong to me, that kind of thing.
And the same thing happens as a child develops. They begin to understand, oh, there's mum, there's dad, and there's my brother, and I'm someone different emotionally as well. So as we gain this self-awareness, then we begin to make decisions for ourselves that we're conscious of. And the more we do that and the more conscious we are, now we might be acting on the sin that was passed to us or impressed upon us, but now there's more and more responsibility for those actions attributed to our soul from God's perspective.
Now, an extreme example of that might be, let's say, as a child I was abused sexually by my father, right, let's say. Now, obviously that abuse is a terrible thing done by the hands of my father. He is fully responsible for all of his actions and his sin driving those actions, and every single motive and emotion he had in that, lots to do with sexual power and other things like that.
And then if he shut me down from even feeling about that experience, like that's his sin as well.
Yeah.
He's creating a terrible set of experiences sensorily, emotionally, sexually, and even beliefs inside of me in that process.
Now, you can grow up having that damage but not become a sexual predator yourself. Can't you? In fact, many people who are abused never become a sexual predator themselves. So that was, even though that was the choice of the father, there's the injuries of the sexual injuries that come with the predation of the child. All of those things are present in the child, but the child doesn't act in a manner to act upon those things that have happened to them in order to hurt others. They don't have to hurt others.
Would that be an example of sincerity from someone?
Well, certainly the child obviously now as an adult has a sincere desire not to do that, right? And that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, if they didn't have that, then they'd probably maybe enter the same kind of behaviour themselves, and many do, but not all. In fact, the majority don't, right? What the majority do is they bear the consequence of the predatory behaviour of, say, dad in this case, the abuser, but they don't act upon even the feelings they have in themselves. Sometimes they don't act upon that in a negative manner. They do often act upon it in a negative manner towards themselves, right? But not toward others. So there is some sin in the sense of acting towards yourself badly, right? But at least you could say it's not involving everyone else and yourself, right?
Yeah, and the crucial sin in that scenario Jesus gave you is not releasing that experience, the sensory, sexual, emotional experience and the beliefs associated with it as an adult, or as you're able to engage your free will to release it.
Yeah.
That is your sin.
That's your sin, and that's going to have
for that.
It's going to have negative consequences to yourself.
Yeah.
And also you might act upon certain things which have a negative consequence to others. In other words, with your child you might go, be really careful of every person, and men are untrustworthy, and so your children grow up believing men are untrustworthy. Those kind of things are the effects. But if you deal with the sin from a place where you know it's there, you know the history, the memories have happened, you've got the memories, they're there, they're present, deal with them, and if you deal with them, you'll get to a stage where you're free of them, and then, of course, you know you're not going to influence anybody else with them anyway. Now, the reason why I say all that is because it's sort of the same principle with every one of our sins, is we do not have to act upon the predispositions of the sins of our forefathers. That is a personal choice I'm making to act upon. So if I had been abused and I decided, well, my dad abused me, so I'm going to abuse my children, that's me acting upon a very negative influence that harmed me in my life, And I know it has, frequently I know it has, and yet I choose to do the same thing on the next generation. That's my will. That's got nothing to do with the fact that my father abused me. It's got everything to do with the fact that I am willing now to abuse others, even though I personally have experienced the hurt of being abused. I'm now prepared to visit the same abuse upon another. That's pretty extreme lack of love, isn't it, if you think about it?
Yes.
Yep. So you can see that me having a sin doesn't mean that I must visit my sin upon everybody else. And my choice to visit my sin upon others is an exercise of my will. And therefore, it is my sin. Now, as Mary pointed out, as the child grows, my desire to do that strengthens. So when you're 4 or 3, you barely think about those kind of things. But when you're 7, you think about it a bit more. That's when you might start to do things like steal or, take things from others or punch somebody in the face when at school or whatever. And then by the time you're a teenager, there's the sexual elements that get mixed in as well, where you decide you're going to harm somebody sexually or get some control over them emotionally and all those kind of things. And they are your decisions, acting upon the sins of your forefathers and
even sometimes you just
invent that you invented.
I see an opportunity for a sin and it's got nothing to do with what was handed to me. I'd like to do that.
I like that, it feels good, so I'm going to do it. That kind of thing. And so this is why the sins that we are responsible for is a gradually increasing issue as we grow. So at 2, you're barely responsible for any of your sins, really. When it comes to 10, now the situation is very, very different. Now you're starting to engage your own sin through your own choices, your own decisions, right? Some of which have been predisposed by the forefathers, others of which you've invented, right? And so you are responsible for the addressing of those yourself. That makes sense?
Yes, you answered my question very thoroughly.
Yeah, but you got to also remember, as I said, these sins are in each area of your existence. So it's not just an intellectual choice you've made. It's the emotional choices you make, the sexual choices you make, your sensory choices you make, your belief system choices you make. These are all things that lead you into sin in all of these different ways. And remember we said yesterday how the sum total of all that are your memories. So in the Paget messages you'll read, we talk about the memories, right? We talk about what the memories are and what happens to those memories and everything, and even what happens in forgiveness with those memories. And it's important to understand when we use the word memories in the messages, we're referring to all these aspects of self where you've learnt how to sin. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, which increases over the time of your life, usually. And by the time you're 20, 25, generally your sins are very, I'm doing them type of feeling, you know what I mean? They're very much
Righteous,
your own,
yes.
very righteously involved in them being your own. And even the sin of being easily manipulated is actually a choice on the part of the person who's being manipulated. Do you understand?
Really?
Yeah. The reason why is because a person who's easily manipulated is doing it for a sinful reason. And it might be fear that they've done it for, a fear of violence, a fear of being attacked, a fear of being ridiculed, a fear of no acceptance, fear of no approval. And all of those fears are sins. Mm-hmm. So even your desire to go along with somebody else's sin is actually a sin, not the same sin, but it is a sin on your part. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So this way you must, if your dad tells you to go along with him on one of his sins, you're going to say, stuff you, Dad, I'm not going along with you on that sin. I'm responsible for my actions, you're responsible for yours. You want to do your sin, you go and do your sin, but I'm not doing it along with you, and I'm not going to agree with you that it's right. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
God really wants to educate us, and part of the operation of the laws of what's defined as sin and the compensation you pay for sin is an exercise in educating you about the power of your free will choices to either create loving outcomes, to create loving circumstances, or to create unloving, painful circumstances. So even when we say, I'm giving up my will to someone else, God's trying to educate you that you can't do that, Maya. Your will is yours, and there's going to be
God gave you the gift of your will, and it's yours, and you're responsible for using it or even not using it.
Even when you say you're not using it, you're using it, and there will be painful results.
Yeah.
So that is why we have to connect with God on who to trust, because we're using our will on whether or not we trust somebody, but we should trust people.
That's right, yeah. And that brings us to the idea that there's also sins of omission as much as there's sins of commission. A sin of omission is where you should have done something loving and you chose not to. So let's say you saw somebody really hurt and you chose to not try to help them. That's a sin of omission, right? You see somebody who needs some help and you don't want to help them. That's omission. A sin of commission is where you purposely do something unloving to a person. That's commission, right? So you've got sins of omission where you neglected being loving, and you've got sins of commission where you tried to be unloving, right? Now, if you look at the sins of omission, I bet you hardly any of you looked at any of those. Is that true? You looked at some of your sins last night. How many of you saw the things you didn't do? Very few, you see? And yet they are one of the biggest areas of sins on the planet.
If you think about even, I think some of the spirits that we talked to this weekend mentioned it, that they had pangs of conscience, that they saw that was an opportunity for me to do a loving thing or for me to change the course of my life in a loving direction, but I didn't take it. There's a huge amount of pain in the spirit life about the sin of omission, the sin of, the choice I had to love, the choice I had to change that I neglected.
Usually it's the sins of commission that we get to a state of sincere ignorance on first, because we know we did them. But it's often the last thing to deal with is the sins of omission, the things we neglected to do when we should have done them. Do you understand? Yes. Yeah. And so it's very important to understand that if I am in a state where I think I'm in sincere ignorance, have I actually dealt with sincere ignorance to the point in both areas of omission and commission? Or have I just looked at commission? So an example of that is, let's say, in my teenage years, I got involved with sexual activity, I got pregnant, and then I decided to have an abortion, right? And then I come to the conclusion, that felt bad, I knew that was bad, my conscience bothered me about that. I could have taken the child to full term and given it away even. That would have been a better course of action rather than just to abort the child, because then I ended its life, and so there's problems associated with that for that child. So you realise it was the wrong thing. So that's realising the sin of commission was wrong. But many parents don't realise how they're training their child or neglecting to train their child in love is a sin of omission. And so often you get in the spirit world and you go, I recognise the abortion was wrong. But you get on the other side of the spirit world, you're going, but I think I did the right thing with my children. And oftentimes the two people end up in almost the same place in the spirit world, because the sins of omission towards the child had just as powerful effect on the child as the abortion would have on the child. Do you understand? And so most of us don't see this. Most of us go, the abortion I see, but the sins of omission I committed with my children, where I should have taught them things and should have helped them with different, helped them work through different attitudes they were developing that I felt were wrong at the time, but I neglected to do it because I wanted to think me a good mother or whatever. I neglected to do all of those things. And as a result, the child is being just as damaged as if it had been damaged by not having a life. And so therefore the consequence to my soul and to theirs to some degree has been similar, right? And this is where we don't see omission. You know, we can easily recognise the things that we see are sort of brutal facts to our conscience. But when it comes to omission, none of those things generally bother our conscience.
May I ask an additional question?
Sure.
How are we aware of omission but not imposing on somebody's free will? Like doing something that will we automatically know that as we build our soul condition?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, as you build your soul condition, you know exactly when the child is in a state, so example of children, you know exactly when the child is learning something that's bad for them and bad for people around them. So an example of that, let's say the child learns that they can fake things with you. Right? Now that might seem just a little innocent thing.
Well, a lot of parents think it's really cute when kids are really small.
Like when they fake something, you know. Like they might they might dramatise their feeling. Like they didn't have an accident that hurt them, but they cry, fake the crying with you. And people just laugh at that and they think it's quite funny, right? Actually, it's quite bad to laugh at it because you're reinforcing through approval, right, that behaviour is acceptable. Now, there's a sin of omission. Now, what the child may do with that in its future might be all sorts of things. All sorts of things might come from that, just that one sin of omission, to re-educate the child and say, no, you faking an emotion, dramatising an emotion, making things bigger than they actually are, right, is much worse than you just having the emotion. Yeah, you understand?
Yes.
And you would help the child because by rewarding that behaviour, you're helping them be fake. And in helping them be fake, you're helping them develop a facade. And if you help them develop a facade, by the time they're an adult, they're going to live in that facade with people. They're going to use their outward appearance of emotion in a manipulative manner to get what they want, which is actually a very devious and dark thing to do. Makes sense? So that's an example of how a tiny little, seemingly tiny little sin of omission, even one that you just laughed at, which is also a sin of commission actually, and often they're both, but you laugh at something that you think is quite innocent, but actually if you really ponder about the character development of your child, that's not innocent. That there's something seriously wrong going on there. Makes sense?
Thank you both.
Yeah. Can I just add to that, Jay? Like another example, because you were asking about, well, when do I help and when is that imposing on people's free will? It's similar to what we were talking about earlier with your mum. I know she's kind of your mum, but yeah, like about, I want to help, so I'll make the meals for everyone, not seeing that now I'm undermining the self-responsibility opportunities of the people around me, rather than, I'll teach my kids how to cook from a really young age. So one is enabling the free will of others and giving a gift, and so teaching the child from a young age how to cook so they're fully self-responsible. The other, I'll give a gift of my service to help people by cooking their meal every day of my life for them, is actually undermining the free will choices of the children and the people in their environment.
Which is a sin of commission.
Yes.
I'm purposely doing it for some reason inside of myself rather than considering the ramifications for the children.
Yeah. But as you develop, you'll become sensitive to, okay, what is the loving use of my will? I want to promote that in others and not undermine it. And we start to see many ways we've undermined people's loving use of will. Yeah.
So you know when some of you, when you receive a gift, for example, you reject it. That's an interesting sin of omission, of commission. Why would you reject a gift? There's only a few circumstances where you would. And that is if you felt the person was giving it with either the wrong motive or they were more destitute than you, right? And you feel that, you know, I'd like them to keep their gift.
And if they were doing it with the wrong motive, it's not a true gift anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So the rest of the time, why would you not accept it, right? If you know you're going to use the gift positively and with love, then why would you not accept any gift that is given and then use it positively with love? Yeah. So there's so many times when we think we're doing the right thing, and yet from God's perspective, we're actually teaching the people around us the wrong thing. Yeah. So this is why, you know, you can see, can't you, that unless we get rid of the sin, we can't see any of that. We don't see the reality of that. And so many times what I find is people who we present seminars to, they're constantly asking us questions about their day-to-day life. What do I do here? What do I do there? What do I do here? What do I do there? For the most part, we don't actually say anything about that. And there's a reason why, and that is because once a person gets to the stage where they desire, you're going to get to sincere ignorance on the issue and get to the desire to learn and get some truthful education, the sincere desire to apply has to be present within them before they will act. And once they act, they will know exactly what to do because the sin's gone. So they know what the loving thing to do is themselves. And the interesting thing with love is that there are so many things that you can do that are in harmony with love, just like there are so many things you can do that are out of harmony. You understand? There's not one particular rule of what you would do in harmony with love. The rule is make sure it's harmonious with love. But in amongst that is a huge, and in fact, the way God's created it, an almost infinite range of things you can choose to do that would be loving. So example of that is, let's say I noticed that there was a problem on Earth, just a fundamental problem like, we're having too much plastic. You know, just a fundamental environmental issue on Earth, right? There's so many things I can do in acting lovingly that can help with that problem. Like I could find a way to destroy the plastic that is not toxic to the environment. I could find a way to not produce as much plastic. I could find a way to repackage everything so we don't use it at all. The source of the plastic is petroleum products. I could find a way to no longer mine fuel, petroleum, oils and gases that produce these products. I could find a way where other energy sources are available rather than the easy one, the one that, you know, we all just currently use. There's so many personal things I can do too. I can plant more trees, right? And when it comes to the plastic, I could use less fuel. When there's less fuel that I use, now the excesses of those fuel, the refinery process, which is where the plastics are made from mostly, there'd be less available to be made, right? So there's so many loving things I can choose to do, just with one example, to reduce the amount of plastic in the environment in my own life. The average person doesn't consider all of that though. They're going, the one thing is they shouldn't make any more, or the one thing is that while I'm still driving my car, I'm saying they shouldn't make any more. Well, what? Like, what else are they going to do with the excess of material that gets produced from the refining process? What are we going to do with that? Just burn it all, or what are we going to do? It'd be a waste to not use it. If you're going to refine anything, then make sure you use all of it, at least. So we'd come up with some alternative stuff. There's people investigating how to get rid of plastic through microbial activity, for example. That could be done too. So you can see in amongst the one problem, there's literally thousands of potential things I could choose to do that are all loving than just do nothing. Doing nothing would be a sin of omission, right? And that would be, in that case, the bigger sin, because if I do nothing, nothing good's going to happen from that. Right? So that'd be the biggest problem. When I choose to do even one of those things, I'm already bringing a bit more love into the world through my actions. And so therefore, there's going to be some positive benefit. That makes sense? Yeah.
I'll duck behind.
So can you see the importance of firstly the things we've discussed over the last few days? Firstly, the need to arrive at a point of sincere ignorance in order to really progress. Secondly, the desire, the longing to do something. So here there's a longing to learn. By having a sincere longing to learn, that's a prayer to God. I want to learn. Under those circumstances, if you imagine you're the parent and your child says, I want to learn, what are you going to do? You're going to be, oh, isn't that fantastic? The child wants to learn on its own back, not forced into learning. I don't have to sit the child down and make it do its schoolwork and, sit the child down and make it do its learning. The child wants to. You'd be so impressed, wouldn't you? That even just that your child wants to learn and wants to take a proactive activity to learn. That's how God feels about you. He feels impressed with you when you want to learn. You understand? He's going, this is wonderful. Now I've got an opportunity to influence my child into more happiness because of the child's desire to learn. And then when you exercise, so this is what draws the truthful education to you, this sincere desire to learn. You could say it's a prayer, a sincere longing is a prayer to learn. Not for God's love yet, but to learn. Right? Some of you are already doing that with God's truth, aren't you? You've got a sincere desire to learn more about it, right? So God loves this, right? Then, of course, you can receive a truthful education. You wouldn't be here unless you had some desire to learn. Isn't that true? Some desire to learn some truths. You wouldn't be here. You'd be off doing something else. Yeah? But the sincere desire to learn, the prayer to learn, drew you to a place where you can get education. Yeah? Now, in that place, once I've got the education, I need to have a prayer to apply it. A sincere desire, a sincere longing to apply it. Now, we identified on Friday, didn't we, that that's where many of us are lax, right? We don't have a sincere desire to apply it. We hear it, we're here, we're learning, but we're not applying. Now, of course, if you don't have a sincere desire to apply, a prayer to apply it, then you won't have a prayer to act. The desire drives the action. If the desire is not present to apply something, then there will be no action. And there are times when you have a sincere desire to apply, but you've yet developed a sincere desire to act.
Can you draw the difference between those two things, darling?
Yes, but you can develop a sincere desire to apply, but there may be other issues of which you're not ignorant. Mm-hmm. In other words, that you're firmly in your sin, such as fear. So you might go, I really need to apply that, I really need to apply that, but you're not. Mm-hmm. And that would mean because there's some other sin, right? There's some other sin, in this case fear, maybe fear of being attacked or fear of being ridiculed or fear of being nobody's friend anymore or fear that all your friends will abandon you or fear that your husband won't like you anymore and leave you and fear about what the children will do and fear, there's lots of fears. So you might get to this point and find, actually, I have no sincere desire to feel my fear.
Mm-hmm. So then we might head back up here, mightn't we?
So now we've got to come back up here and go, I need more information about my fear. I need to sort out how I'm using my fear as a way to avoid applying, avoid acting. Does that make sense? So you might get down here on one issue and then realise, I've got a whole heap of fears on other issues which are affecting my desire to act. right?
And is it fair to say that this application part is where I go, okay, I see my sin, oh, and now I'm applying it in my life. I see it there, I see it there, I see it there. Oh, I'm applying it across everything here.
It's not just apply it, though, in terms of our sort of feelings about it, but it's also I've got a sincere desire to do something about it, right? But unfortunately, there might be other things stopping my sincere desire to actually act upon it. Do you follow? Other things such as fear of violence, fear of attack, fear of ridicule, fear of being made fun of. You know, it can be just a simple fear like that. Fear of being made fun of, and it stops you in your tracks. The fear of being ridiculed, stop you in your tracks. Fear of people laughing at you, stop you in your tracks. You know, and then you know, I'm valuing my fear. There's another one of my sins. I need to get to sincere ignorance on that sin. I need to get to the stage where I realise that is a sin. There's something wrong with that sin. I need to do something about that sin, right? And once you do that, then you can act. And then once you act, once you have the desire to act, the prayer to act, and it's sincere, because really the removal of fear is going to be required here for it to be sincere. Mm-hmm. And then once you remove your fear about acting, you will act. And in the case of what we're recommending is act to pray for God's love. Act to sincerely ask of God's love. And remember I said here that the very first act would be an act of repentance. So in other words, where you see a sin, you see its ramifications, you see its effects, and you go, I feel cut to the heart and like just sort of almost emotionally destroyed that I did that. Yeah? And when you take that to God, you will find God says, yes, that is right that you're cut to your heart, that you're in this state now where you're really in a sorrowful state about doing that thing. And not only that, because you are in that state and you've asked me for help, God says, I'm going to give you my love in order to forgive you for the act. And the process of being forgiven causes your remembrance of the memory that caused you to act in a sinful way to disappear. Fundamentally, forgiveness is the act of removing your memory as to why you did the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. Right? And one thing I would like to recommend is all of these truths that I've told you are actually contained within the Paget messages. They're all there. That's why I'd recommend you read them. You understand? Because they contain the highest truths about how to make progress. And so I can't recommend to you enough to spend your time reading them. Give yourself some contemplation, quiet time. Don't sit down reading them on a computer. You know, get away from the tech and sit down with the book and just read. Because what happens then is that you'll find yourself, after hearing some of the things we've mentioned, you'll find yourself, oh, that's what Jesus was talking about there, with that particular operation of the Holy Spirit, the flow of love that comes through the operation of God's Spirit. This is the process of forgiveness and repentance. This is a part of what I need to learn for my own sake in order to deal with my sin.
Now, yeah, Eugene had a question about the messages, so maybe it's a good time to answer that.
All right, so I've been reading the Paget messages.
Yeah, a bit closer
Just
to the mic.
Does this work?
Yep. That's
Okay, so I've been reading the Paget messages, and one set of statements keep coming up over and over again.
Yep.
And that's basically, don't focus on this, don't think about these things, focus on praying for, whomever that might be.
Yep.
So my question is there any weight to this in terms of staying mentally positive or focusing on specific things?
Certainly there is, yes. So
yeah,
let's look at this.
Oops,
So don't misinterpret those words, but let's look at the true meaning of them as we intended. What we intended to say to him is, look, when you start examining your sin, getting to the state of feeling like you're sincerely sorry for it, what happens is most people get quite down. They get angry with themselves, bitter, they get quite depressed, they get in a very, what I would classify as the opposite of a humble place. They get in a very shut down, emotionally distraught, but shut down emotionally place, where they get angry with the world, they get angry with God, they get angry with the truth, they get very down and depressed, and therefore no longer motivated to examine their sin. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You've got to notice this in yourselves. Many of you have learnt from childhood that when somebody exposes a truth in you, that the best thing you can do is just punish yourself for it, and then hopefully the person will stop exposing it. Right? You've learnt how to manage criticism in this manner. Remember that God is criticising your sin. He is. He's judging it. It's criticised. The law is criticising the sin. So what happens is the average person, when they are criticised, how do you spell it here?
C-I, yep, you've got to have a C where that...
Criticised.
C where the S is, isn't it?
Sized. Yep. The average person criticised gets into a very strong desire to manage the criticism. Now, whether that is self-criticism or the criticism of others. Right? Now, the process of examining sin will highlight errors. And in the process of highlighting errors, you are fundamentally criticising yourself. Can you see that? You're highlighting your own faults. So you're fundamentally becoming a critic of yourself, right? And you're trying to judge it from the perspective of God, but unfortunately, because of our other errors, we have a tendency to judge it from the perspective of humans. And most humans react quite violently to the sin itself. So in other words, if I say to you, like, let's look at a big sin. Let's say you murdered somebody and I highlighted it to you. Almost everyone around you, if they hear me say you murdered somebody, they would all heap their own judgment on you about it. They would. If they didn't know that you'd murdered somebody before, and now they do, they would be like on you. Many of them would want to take you to court, just, and get you in jail as soon as possible, And imagine if it was like, say, pedophilia or something like that. It's even worse than most people like to murder you. So there's all this judgment coming upon you, about the sins committed. We also have a habit, when there is so much judgment, that we start judging ourselves. We start heaping all of this criticism and doubt and everything upon ourselves. So in the process of being criticised, there's a lot of emotional ways in which we respond to the criticism. So you could fundamentally say from this event that yesterday I criticised you a lot. Couldn't you say? Or you could say sure. Your sin was criticised is a better way of saying it, isn't it? Many of you will act very differently about that criticism. Some of you get real down on yourself and you get real depressed, and you'll come away from this event and you might spend 3 months in a state of you don't even want to listen to God's truth anymore, even.
That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Most people get to that sort of a stage. Why? Well, the reason why is because we're now using other emotions that we're not prepared to address as an excuse to no longer deal with the problem. Do you understand what I mean by that?
No.
Eugene? So an example is, I'm angry about being criticised. That's an emotion. I'm now going to use that as an excuse to not deal with the original problem, which was my sin, the sin that I've been criticised for. So this weekend I criticised you about how you're viewing fear, for example, right? Now, if you don't want to deal with fear, if you feel resistive to dealing with fear, you'll feel, I was criticising your fear and I was wrong to do so. Your fear is justified. You should be allowed to hold on to your fear and keep it. And so in that state, what you will find is you'll have a very negative attitude to receiving more truth. about your fear, right? Your sin will say, I don't want to hear any more about that. I'm sick of that. I don't want to hear it anymore. And you get inside of yourself, you get yourself into a very negative state. This is the state we warned Paget about, because he got into it a number of times, particularly after the death of his daughter. He was promised by different spirits that she wouldn't die, right? And she did die. And after that, he got in such a negative down state, an angry state, didn't want to feel his feelings about it, didn't want to feel the mistrustful feelings he had. He didn't even want to feel about why he received those messages and, you know, whether it was his own preference to receive those messages or not. He didn't want to think about any of that. He just wanted to blame the spirits for his daughter's death. And he got down, so down, that he didn't want to channel anymore, he didn't want to do positive, he didn't want to associate with celestial spirits anymore, didn't want to listen to them anymore, didn't want to do anything about what he'd heard, didn't want to pray anymore, right? He got so down about it that he decided he wasn't going to do any of those things. And when I say down, I don't mean down really. What I mean really is angry.
Yeah. So can we fill in some of the possible responses that you can have when this sin is exposed? Can get angry, like Jesus said. We can get shut down,
which is really angry.
Which is another form of angry.
Yeah.
Withdraw.
That's really angry too. This is all the ways we get angry, right?
Philosophize.
That's another way we get angry. You understand? It's like we go into this philosophical self-delusion. That's another way we get angry, right?
But justify, that's related to
that's also angry.
What about shame?
Is that really true?
Is it shame or sort of angry withdrawal, worry?
There's the shame of guilt, isn't there? Where you feel, I did that and I did the wrong thing.
Unworthy?
Yep. Well, I don't know if that's true either. If you're unworthy, you would still want to fix the problem.
Yeah. Because there is this other thing you can do, which is what we were encouraging Paget to do in the messages all the time. So some of the things, Eugene, you read, what were they? Like, don't turn your thoughts to the higher things, those kinds of
don't
things.
Don't think about all the negative stuff.
Really?
In his life, yeah, because a law of attraction event was bringing him negative things in his life naturally because of the sin, was bringing him these events. But then he'd get all focused on the events and forget about the principles that we were guiding him to get over the events.
So things like faith.
Have some faith.
Aspire.
Have some aspiration.
To love. So this is the encouragement that he was being given, not to like deny the sin, more acknowledge the sin.
So it's not like, skip over all the sin and make yourself feel better that way.
But as Jesus is pointing out, when you're faced with your sin, you then face a lot of choices. And a lot of us prefer to take these other choices, which is withdraw, get angry, shut down, question God, question all the truth you've ever learned until that point, just so you can get away from it, or pray.
Yeah, I understand the motivation to do all these things, but they all come from sinful desires.
Yeah.
So basically, at the end of the day, my conclusion is for myself is that I'm basically insincere.
Well, you could say you might be sincere about one sin, but your reactions to criticism might be another sin. You understand? And on that issue, yes, many of you are insincere. Many of you don't see that you get angry, you get shut down, you withdraw, even the old idea of not worthy to do it. Well, that's crap, isn't it? Really? You're being told over and over again that you're a pinnacle of God's creation. You're worthy to do it. You tell yourself you can't do it. That's crap too. Stop telling yourself you can't do it. You created your sin. You should be able to get rid of it. Isn't that logically true? If you created your sin, you've got to be able to get rid of it. So that's also illogical. Philosophizing about, coming up with some alternative philosophy that helps me zen out from my sin, that kind of thing.
And this shame one is very often, the reason I put it in inverted commas, is it's actually self-punishment usually, which is a way of avoiding dealing with the truth.
It's also a way of avoiding acting.
Yeah.
Because when you get into a state of self-punishment, a lot of times it comes from childhood where your parents taught you did a wrong thing, and so you learnt, instead of them clipping you over the head or belting you with a stick, is if you could punish yourself first, you'd get away, they wouldn't punish you afterwards. So you learnt that, I just belt myself up rather than deal with what I did. I'm just going to belt myself up so that I don't get punished for it anymore. That kind of thing, right?
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
So the way out, then, it sounds like, is to turn your thoughts in a positive direction towards faith, praying.
Have some faith that this is a part of the things you're going to have to deal with. You're shut down, you're angry, you withdraw your shame, what you call your shame, your self-punishment, your philosophizing, your justifying in order to get away from a sin. These are all things you're going to have to address at some point. You understand? And to have some aspiration that you can love, you can deal with these things. And if you pray, you'll get more help, more education. If your prayer is sincere, remember from this diagram, if your prayer, which is the action, is sincere, then you'll get more information, more education about how to deal with the problem, right? Every single one of these things is, almost every single one is a prayer. It's a prayer to learn more about your problem, right? So you'll feel all of that sincerely if you deal with it with a more positive spirit. But when you have a negative spirit, like this is a negative spirit, I'm not talking about spirits around you, I'm talking about your own spirit, your own feelings. These are all negative ways you've learnt to deal with your sin in the past. And all of them must be addressed at some point, right? Because they're all inhibiting your ability to let go of your sin. So all of them are going to have to be at some point addressed.
And something really crucial, it's similar to what Jesus and I are encouraging you to do, is what we were encouraging Padgett to do, is even when things feel hard, stay connected to the sources of love and truth. Continue to seek them out. A lot of times in our anger, or we just want to go numb, we stop reading the messages. We stop seeking out people who we know are going to be more truthful with us. We withdraw into a little shell, and then then through the law of rapport, we attract a lot of negative spirit influence, and we attract a lot of negative media and negative people, and it becomes a cycle.
Once you get into there, you're going to attract a lot of bad things.
Yeah.
Once you start getting angry, shut down, withdrawn, there's going to be a lot of very negative attractions now coming to your life that justify these positions. Yeah.
And I used to do this a lot years ago, and Jesus used to say to me, our spirit brothers and sisters, our friends, are not fair weather friends. They want to be with you even when times are hard. They want to keep talking to you even when you feel like you tell yourself you're not worthy or you just want to go numb. They're not going to abandon you. It's only you who would withdraw from their love. So this is why we say when we're not here, continue to read the messages. Why we said to Padgett, turn your thoughts to the higher things. Still, things are hard. You're having to face difficult things. You feel afraid, but don't neglect the truth in order to manage that emotion. The truth often helps us through that emotion, not in a natural love or new agey way of like distracting yourself, but by giving you courage and faith to deal with the sin that's within you, to face the truth of the sin in you.
So, Eugene, where do you live now?
Florida.
Florida?
West Florida.
West Florida? Actual town?
Northport.
Northport, okay. So down in Northport, you're living down there, and you hear there's a Divine Truth event, and it's in Chapel Hill. It's not in my hometown. So what does Jean have to do?
Well, find out when the event is, take time off work, schedule it.
So there's a task he has to complete.
Yep.
If he wants to be there, isn't there?
Yes.
Can you see that? So one of them is to get some time off work. If you're working, you're going to have to plan the trip, aren't you?
Travel
Are you going to
arrangements.
drive, fly, whatever you're going to do? You're going to
Where
work
are you
all
gonna
that
stay?
out. Then let's say you're on the road. Let's say you chose to drive and on the road, and you come up with a road sign that says blocked road. And there's been a hurricane come through. You can't get through the planned route. What does Gene do when he wants to still get to Chapel Hill?
Find a way around it.
He finds a way around that, doesn't he? And why does he do it?
Well, in my case, it's a lot of pushing myself.
Yeah. But fundamentally,
ultimately-
if you want to be there, you'll do it, won't you?
Yes.
Yeah. If you want to be there, so if you want to get to the end, you will do that change. So you'll have to make an adjustment, won't you? Now, some people get to that point and they go, oh, I'm blocked, so I'm not going. They give up right there and then, the very first moment. In giving up the very first moment, there is some kind of opposition, whether that opposition is external or internal. Giving up the very first moment does actually mean you're not very sincere. Mm-hmm. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah. It also means that you don't see the benefit of the end goal. Because if you still wanted to get to a location, even though there was a thing stopping you, you still probably want to get there. Like if I switch it around and say, the love of your life happens to be in Chapel Hill.
You're going to swim through the raging
I'm going to
river.
make it. Yeah.
You're walking there, man, aren't you? Like, and you'll walk over hill, over mountains, through the snow, or whatever. That's how you feel at the moment, right? But can you see how the motivation to do something depends on the desire for the final end goal, but it also is how persistent I am developing qualities that allow for me to make adjustments in my life, to change my life here and to sort out my life there and fix my life in different ways, and being persistent about all of those things. So these are all qualities that we need for our future. They're more important than even your house. Having the quality like of persistence is more important than you owning a house or even having any money at all. Right? Because that one quality will help you through your life in so many different ways.
Yeah.
You know, having a quality of being positive, even when you're faced with what seem to be mountainous obstacles. So sin sometimes appears to ourselves as mountainous obstacles, right? You know, go, oh, if I notice this sin and it seems so big that I'm never going to be able to change it, right? It's not a mountainous obstacle, but we believe it is. Having the feeling of I'm going to persist is going to take me to it and beyond it. Now, I put to you, let's say we're in a multi-storey building, and let's say the top of that building happens to be the celestial spheres. So if I said to Eugene, at the top of this building we're in today, you actually can enter the celestial spheres, right? You'd be going, okay, what's the way up?
What floor is it on?
Yeah, what floor is it on? And I say, hang on a sec, Gene, there's no lift. There's no magical way of getting there, right? What you're going to need then is, I would say, there's stairs, but there's this intricate pathway of stairs based upon whatever is your sin. So in other words, you're going to, do you understand? Mm-hmm. Whatever is your sin creates the intricate pathway of stairs you need to reach that position, right? So now I'm faced, here's my building, I'm at the bottom of the building, there's an intricate pathway of my own, this is different to your pathway, mine is different to yours, going, and here it is, the nice celestial kingdom, CK, the celestial kingdom, that I can get into, even while I'm on earth, right? I can do this. So I'm going to have to, every single sin is like a roadblock to the next step, isn't it? So you could say it's like stepping up some stairs. So if I choose to go, let's say there's stairs, you could say this pathway is a bunch of stairs. Can you see that if I'm here and I go to there, that's a good move, isn't it? Yeah. If that's my goal, the top of the building, that's a good move. Let's say I get to there and then I realise I've got a whole heap of blocks about making the next step. A whole heap of reasons, including anger, shutdown, withdrawing, shame, self-punishment, justification, philosophizing, shifting the blame to other people, blah, blah, blah. Whatever they are, they're all going to be emotions and beliefs, sexual desires, feelings that are in error. They're all going to be related to something in my soul. And I'm in the second stair, and I'm trying to get to the third, and I now feel like this is damn near impossible, the next step. Right? The very worst thing I could choose to do is what?
Don't go forward, not do anything.
Well, there's worse things.
No. Yeah. Go backwards, that's the worst thing, isn't it? For myself and my life, that's the worst thing, is to then act in my anger, act in my shutdown, act in my withdrawal, act in my philosophizing to the point where now my condition degrades back to the first step again, and then slowly back to the beginning. If I do that, I am not only no closer to my goal, but I've probably let go of the goal. I've probably given up on the goal. And this is what happened to Paget. He gave up. At the end, by the time the end, like 1920s it was, by the time he reached this place, he'd given up on the goal, right? And we could no longer even speak to him anymore. We could no longer inspire him in any way. We couldn't communicate with him anymore. He got involved in life and in a relationship which destroyed his ability to move forward, right? And he did it all because he reached a point where he thought, enough's enough now. It's all too much for me now, right? This is the dangers you face. The danger you face is getting to the point where you realise the next step is going to be difficult and you do not persist in making it. That makes sense to all of you? Yep. And the problem is, it's highly unlikely you'll just stay there in that state, because your own down feelings and negative feelings are probably going to turn you to do the easy thing, which is, climbing upstairs is okay, isn't it? While you got the energy and the effort and the motivation and the desire and everything else. But if you've no longer got the energy, the effort, the desire or the motivation, going down the stairs is a lot easier, isn't it? Isn't that true?
Yes, after listening to Divine Truth for a number of years, it does feel like I'm falling back down the stairs now, to be honest.
You've got to be careful.
Be careful
about
there
that
too,
Okay.
because there's also, when you become more and more aware of your sin, it does sort of feel to some degree like you're going backwards.
Okay.
Right? And so the key thing is to go, okay, I'm not going backwards, I'm now learning what I was denying before. From God's perspective, when you get out of denial, that is a forward movement. But because it's your sin, it's painful to face, and it's pain you've never had before. And so you start thinking you're going backwards.
Yeah, your facade was telling you, I'm a great guy, I'm a great guy. And then you start waking up to your sin, I'm like, I'm not that great. It's worse than I thought. I don't even know if I want to know more. And you think, actually, my life is getting worse.
But from God's perspective,
I'm going down in my own estimation. But God is saying, this is awesome. Closer to sincere ignorance.
He's saying,
here we go.
Gene, you're facing reality for the first time in your entire life. Let's celebrate, man. You know what I mean? That's what he's going, right? You follow?
Yeah.
And this is not the way we see it, though, because we're looking at our sin and we go, terrible things I'm having to see about myself. And so for us, it's sort of like, from God's perspective, we're facing reality for the first time. From our perspective, it's like reality is bad. Yeah. It's bad reality. I want to run away from it.
A lot of people get to that point and they're actually climbing a step, like Jay was saying.
Yeah.
They're getting more truth, they're getting more awareness, and then they go, this is too much, I'm going back down. And in Australia, we have this little joke, some of the managers in God's Way, okay, it hurts now. I don't know if I'm going to take the next step, but I'm camping out here. I don't want to go backwards. I'm going to hang on right here, and I'm going to keep looking at this issue that is being shown to me. It hurts, but I don't want to go back down.
Yeah. Because the trouble is, every step you go back down is another step you're going to have to climb in the future.
Yeah. and you rue it because you shut yourself down, you numb out, you get all self-punishing, blah, and then you realise I'm completely disconnected from myself now, and now I have to regain the sincerity to be sensitive.
Yeah.
To it's not completely lost the progress I made, but I've tried to shut it all off.
Yeah.
And it takes effort again.
The darkest time you will have in your progress is when you come face to face with your sins. It's difficult because most of them you've wanted to ignore the whole life. Most of them you've used your addictions to sort of get over the whole life. It's very hard to then come face to face with them and actually see the full extent of the damage to your own life and others. Yeah. Very difficult process, but necessary, and you're going to have to do it here or in the spirit world anyway. And as our spirit friends have pointed out to you in this event, it's far better if you do it here because then you won't have to do it there. My sort of view is, well, anything I can do now, why am I putting it off to tomorrow?
Yeah.
You know? Because all I'm going to have to do is deal with it tomorrow and then also deal with the resistance I had to dealing with it today.
Yeah, because the more I stay in denial, the more I build on that denial. And so I have to undo the bricks of my own denial that I build every year I stay in it. Yeah. It's better to get... over time, you come to get God's perspective that, oh, I'm coming out of denial. This feels worse, but it's better. I'm getting more truth. Yep. I'm getting more connected to the pain of my sin. This feels worse, but it's progression.
You've got to have some faith that going through the process of feeling your sin is going to be painful. You must learn how to deal and feel your pain and still go through it. It's a very important thing. Because if you don't, you'll get to your pain and it'll be like a brick wall that says stop. And then you stop and now your progress is stopped.
Yeah. And then I wake up the next morning and it's like it never happened. That's the feeling. Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Thank you.
So this is the kind of thing we tried to explain to Paget, of course. You know, there were a number of times. The first danger of it was when he had his daughter die. It was very big for him, and we tried to help him through that, but he was quite resistive even during that phase. He was quite resistive to learning about why he was so angry and why he was so upset. And so that was difficult. So we could see from that event, we could see on the horizon, it's likely it's going to happen again. Right? Because there was an emotional refusal to address the issues associated with the first event. We could also then see that it was like to happen again. So now we could see there was a shortening opportunity to share the truth with him until the next events occurred. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep. And that's exactly what happened. By the time 1923 came along, there was no, 1921 to 3, hardly any messages were received from him at all, by him at all. When did he pass? It was something like 26 or something like that from memory. I can't remember exactly, but 23, sorry. So yeah, a couple of years before he passed, this started happening. 2021, it was all started happening. And so by the time he passed, there was no communication with him at all from the spirit world. None from his wife either, Helen. And to be honest with you, it took him a long time to even reopen up again after he passed to the influences even of his own wife. Yeah, because of it. He sort of felt that she was the one who lied to him the most, because she was the one who was more positive about the survival of her daughter than the majority of us were. And as a result, he felt he couldn't trust her. Interestingly, it was driven by his own need to have a woman look after him and approve of him. Emotionally. Yeah. So it would have exposed a good injury if he had dealt with it on earth.
Mediums, deal with your soul condition.
Yeah, that's right. But unfortunately did not have that effect. Yeah. So important to understand the dynamic of what happens once you see your sin and the criticism that begins, and then what you do as a result of it is all not positive for your future. And I constantly remind myself, I'm in a down place right now with my sin, like with one thing or another. I'm in a down place. But if I give up, now I'm in There's no future guarantee. Now, what I mean by that is, remember I said earlier how I said about the trip. I want to get to Chapel Hill. That's where my girl is. For you, Jean, right?
Yep.
I'm not saying that's where she is, of course, but I'm just using it as an example. So I want to get to Chapel Hill for whatever the reason is, right? And I'm down in, where was it again?
Northport,
Florida. In Florida. Northport, FL. And here is Chapel Hill, NC, isn't it? So if I get to this page here and I just stop, will I ever get there?
No.
Ever?
No.
At some point I'm going to have to start again. Can you see that? At some point I'm going to have to start again. Isn't it better to start sooner?
Logically, absolutely.
Logically, yes. It's better to start sooner. So when we're in a state like this about progress, we're not being logical. For our own benefit, we're not being logical. We're being illogical. We're using all this emotional baggage, but unfortunately we're not thinking logically or feeling logically anymore. We're actually shutting down our ability to get to a point by shutting down our progress, by deciding I'm not going to do any more. Now, many people who've been listening to Divine Truth for years and years and years, we see this happening to them now. And the reason why is because they never really understood Divine Truth in the first place. But now they start to understand it, and then they start realising how much they're going to have to do, and then they start realising, I don't know if I really want to do that. Yeah. This is a good thing to realise, but it's important to get through that state. Yeah. Does that make sense? It's a good thing to realise that, it's going to be tough, there's going to be pain. It's a good thing to realise that, because then you'll be a bit more prepared to go through the experience of it. But it's also essential to see that if you lose faith in the end goal, then you will lose all motivation to do anything. Yeah. And frequently I've seen on earth in particular, people hear God's truth for a while, and this happened a lot in the first century, by the way, too, where people heard God's truth for a while, got to the point where they were really confronted with something, got stuck there and got very angry and upset and, did all these things that you guys do too. And they went downhill, and then I never saw them again for a couple hundred years. Right? That happened to some of the people that you know of as apostles, actually. The ones that are mentioned in the Bible. Some of them did that. Some of them arrived in the hills because of their condition. They were in such an angry place as well because they refused to deal with the truth when they heard it. And it took them years and years to get out of it. Right? So I would not recommend that course of action, just like I didn't recommend it to Paget. You follow? Yep. All right, guys. Well, that's probably the end of our day, I think, isn't it? I'm glad to see all of you again, and hopefully we'll be here again next year. It looking like it's about 8 or 9 months' time at this stage. So you'll get sick of seeing us, perhaps, right?
Yep.
Well, particularly if we start talking about sins. It's like, I'm being a masochist going to one of those. So it's very important, though, to allow yourself to see that unless sincere prayer occurs, then God's love cannot flow. And that's really been the main message of our week, our 3 days with you, right? Unless sincere prayer occurs, God's love cannot flow. And so we need to understand really what sincerity is. Yeah. And hopefully from the last 3 days you've come to see a bit more about sincerity. Make sense? Yep.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think that's probably all we need to discuss with everybody.
I think so. Thank you very much for your participation. Yeah. Who was here last year at one of the events? Yeah, so most of you, how did you find it this year as opposed to last year in terms of your ability to concentrate and stay engaged? Even though the material was tough. Better? Yeah, better.
Yeah.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good.
I loved last year because it was so small and interactive.
Oh, because of the smaller
Small
groups, you
venues,
mean?
yes, yes.
It was almost like
50.
Really, you were in the living room, and it was so we all had more of an opportunity to have more personal feedback. I think anyway.
Yeah, but-
I'd say this hasn't been great.
But that's an addiction
And
too.
that was the addiction,
Yeah,
yes.
the addiction to personal feedback is actually a very bad addiction.
Yeah.
Because this is one thing that I've learnt a lot in my own life, is that if you can make progress by just absorbing feedback from any source without it being personal, you're going to find progress less painful than if
And
it
more
has to
rapid.
be personal.
Yeah.
You're going to find progress less painful if you can absorb feedback without it needing to be personal.
So when we teach principles...
Yeah, so let's have the mic if you're going to speak
Yeah,
more.
yeah,
But well, you are speaking more, is what I'm saying. But can you see the principle is, if I can absorb feedback from the universe, like the way I have progressed, I haven't had anybody give me personal feedback.
But didn't you say we're going to need yesterday?
You did pass there.
You see how you really did need the mic. Yeah.
But didn't you say yesterday that in order for us to progress, we would need truth from a higher source?
I needed truth from a higher source.
Oh, God.
There you go.
And also, can you see the difference between feedback and truth? Like, in the way you're using the word feedback is more like personalised handwritten note to Margaret. Margaret, you have this issue with this issue,
Yeah.
and then there's this and this and this.
Oh, no, we didn't have that
Whereas-
last year.
No, you did.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, and you even had it in this event,
Yeah.
some personal feedback, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
You have. So, you know, a lot of times that's what we expect. But what I want to sort of teach you this principle. The principle is, if I need personal feedback, then I'm going to have to wait until somebody's prepared to give me it. Aren't I? Yeah. But if I can, through my own analysis and through my own examination of my life and through the law of attraction and the law of cause and effect, and also my inability to receive love from God, through those assessments, I can see I must be doing something wrong, and I can see what that wrong thing is by myself, then fundamentally I don't need another person to tell me. Well, that's how I progressed. I trusted God's laws are already telling me. Do you understand? God's laws are already showing me in my life right at this moment what's wrong with it, right? And there's, you know, when you, at any point in time, you'll see there's, until you're at one with God, there's a lot wrong with it, right? So God's laws will expose those things to you. Now, I'm not saying, what I'm saying is God is the higher source, the highest source. And if I can connect to God directly, then I don't need another source. However, in my sin, it's very difficult to connect to God directly. So then I do need other sources. You follow? But even then, a lot's going to depend on how much I listen versus how much I talk. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So what happens for many of you is many of you want to tell us your personal stories. The reason why you want to do it is because your personal story is a justification for your personal sin. So, you know, that's how you hold on to sin, by justifying to yourself that you should hold on to it, because your personal story justifies you holding on to it.
Your memories is another way of saying that. Yeah.
Correct. Your memories are saying, my memories are true. They are justifiably true. And if I live by my memories, I'm going to want to justify those memories to somebody else. And this is why many of you force other people into listening to you about your own memories.
Who does that?
All of you do that, right? Yeah. Yeah. It's, and the more needy you are and demanding you are about doing that, the more obnoxious you are. Isn't it the case? And people get repelled by you then. You know, they go, oh, I'm sick of that person just goes, at me all the time, you know, they talk, can't get a word in edgeways. Now, if you went with that attitude to a celestial spirit who's trying to help you, what do you reckon they'd do? Do you think they're going to sit down? They already know your history. All they have to do is read it in your soul, right? They know your history. And you're there telling them, history again. Why would I want to waste my time listening to your history when I already know it? You understand? Now, you don't think I know it. You don't think the celestial spirit knows it, but he does, right? He knows it. But you do need to tell it. But who do you need to tell it to? You really need to tell it to somebody who is in a poorer condition than yourself, so they can learn from your history. So what often happens in the spirit world is when you start telling your story, if a celestial spirit goes, just stop for a minute, goes off and gets somebody who might benefit from your story, brings them back and says, tell them. Does that make sense? Because you don't need, the celestial spirit doesn't need to be told your story, he already knows it. And it's just a waste of his time listening. You understand? So this is the kind of thing we need to realise, is that you telling your story is only beneficial to another person if the other person is going to learn from your story. It's not for your benefit really, because you can tell yourself your own story without talking at all. Right? So the need to talk, to tell somebody, another person your story, is actually an unloving demand upon the other person, which many of you express towards Mary and myself. You understand? You want to tell your story. You feel we need to know it, right? We need to understand you better, because that comment you made, that doesn't apply to me. You know, that comment you made about that doesn't apply to me. You need to understand me better, and then you might get me, that kind of thing. And all of that is addiction. That's all unloving behaviour, all driven by sin. That's why Mary and I very rarely engage it. We say, stop for a minute. Are you going to listen or are you going to talk? It's really there's only one point of talking, and that is if somebody can learn from the experience. And that somebody shouldn't be you. Right? Like, that's the real reason for doing it, right? To be able to impart truth. Now, if you don't know the truth in the story you're telling, then the story is a complete waste of time from God's perspective, because you're not even seeing the truth yourself about it, let alone understanding that it can help somebody else. So when Mary and I tell you our personal stories, it's not for the point of making you know us or understand us or any of those things. It's firstly to answer your questions, and secondly to show you some truths. Make sense? That's the purpose of the story. Now that was a little segue to show you actually how even little things like that are quite large demands of unloving demands. Right? Areas where we need to improve in our condition of love. Make sense? Yeah. And a person who's a celestial spirit doesn't do that. Now, you remember Luther when he came? You asked him questions, he answered them. He did nothing else other than answer your questions. Interesting. He's had hundreds and hundreds of years of life. He's done thousands, tens of thousands of things, met millions of people, right? And yet he'd never told you anything about his story except when you asked. Interesting. You see? That's a loving spirit. That's a loving person. He didn't impose himself on you. He didn't force you into anything. He waited for your desire and he answered. Yeah? Just a little thing to understand, because the more you do the opposite to that, you don't realise how people around you are going to be repelled from you. And in some ways, this is why some of you are finding when you speak up about divine truth, people are repelled, because they have that feeling that you're going to force it down their throat. Yeah? rather than wait for their interest, wait for their desire. I have waited for your desire. That's why you're here. You have a desire. I don't come and knock on your door. I used to. I used to knock on people's door, force it down their throat. What I thought was truth, you know. Until I got to the point where I connected my soul and I felt, this is so bad and I'm so wrong doing this, I just couldn't do it one more time.
You don't knock on doors anymore, by the way.
No, I don't. And never will in the future. Yep. No, never will. The only door I'm going to knock on is when I was invited there in the first place. And just to let them know I'm now there. That's the only time. So I'd just like to encourage all of you to understand more about love in that regard. Love is not pushy, demanding upon you. Love is not going to pressure you. It's going to maybe inspire you, help you with your motivations, but it's not going to do other things. The same applies with your relationships. If you say you love a person, whether, you know, man or woman, whether you love them, if you say you love them and then you're forceful with them and pushy with them and telling what to do all the time and bossing them, you don't love them. Not yet, you don't. All right? So this is something that needs to be addressed. And Americans are renowned worldwide for being pushy. Do you know that? Worldwide. It's a reality. You're renowned for it. So in Australia, people would just say to you, get a life, mate. That's what they'd say. You know, what I'm saying is you can exercise desire and passion without being pushy and demanding. Yeah. Anyway, that was a little side lesson for the end of our chat. Thanks, guys.
Jennifer, is it something logistical? Yeah, just wait for the mic then.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we just pass it back to Jennifer.
Just
Keep
pass
your
it
hand
straight
up,
back to
Jennifer.
Jennifer. Yeah. So that's the end of our presentation.
Yeah.
Now we can answer questions about logistical matters before we leave, if you want.
Just an expression of desire. I would love to connect with people to go through the pageant messages,
Yeah.
but I would like to do it in person.
Yeah.
And I don't know who all
Anybody?
lives anywhere in North Carolina or Georgia or Tennessee,
Yeah.
any of this area, people who might be interested in doing a little traveling to get together about those.
Well, I think you've made yourself known, so if they want to...
Yeah, they
Connect
can
with you,
come to
they
me.
can. They
They
can come
can.
up afterwards.
Yeah.
However, can I just point out a thing there too?
Yeah, because the desire to share in the experience of reading the messages is...
Why aren't you prepared to have your own experience?
Yeah.
So I don't see any problem with meeting together, discussing something. There's no problem with that at all. But the main thing you're going to need to do is prayer with God is a personal experience. Mm-hmm. Receiving truth is a personal experience. When you get together with a group, to a large extent, you might be guided by the general atmosphere of the group, and quite often that's the same as the person in the lowest condition in the group.
Yeah.
Oh. Which could be me.
Sorry, which might
Which
be you.
could be me.
It might be you, yeah. Well, it could be, you know, if we're humble,
I would look at
we'd
what
see
drives the desire, Jen, because it's a desire you've had for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's
you
not
haven't-
happened.
It's not happened and you haven't dealt with... That would tend to indicate that it's not pure.
Yeah, when it's pure, things happen organically.
Ah.
You understand? Through attractions. When they're pure desires, things just sort of happen. When they're impure desires, generally things just... In fact, spirit friends are often trying to organise it so it doesn't happen.
Till you deal
To
with...
help you deal with the emotion.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you won't deal with the emotion. So I'm very thankful that there's a lot of things that my spirit friends in this life have helped me not do.
Me too.
Good
Not
point.
be able to organise.
Yeah.
You know, because it's caused me to be more reflective about what the desire is, and then also take action in a more loving manner. Yeah.
Cool.
Sense.
Okay.
So we're not against the meeting of people together. Yeah. It's lovely when you all do. What's not so lovely is having a demand for it to occur, and to impose that demand upon others.
Yeah. And when you're doing things like reading the messages together, you can diminish the power of the personal experience of reading the messages. You know, I don't feel attracted to reading the messages even with Jesus, because to me that's a time...
We don't read them together.
That's a time between me, God, my spirit friends. It's my personal reflection. So I like getting together with people who want to be truthful and, you know, want to express themselves.
And we discuss them afterwards.
And I might discuss something that I read, that I loved, or what have you. But reading together, I personally wouldn't be attracted to that.
Nor would I.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Just because we know from our own experience that each of us need to make personal changes, and relying on another person to make those changes now puts my development in the hands of another person, and I need to make those changes for myself. What I've learnt myself, and what Mary's also learnt now, is that when you go through that process yourself, when you do come together to discuss the principles or whatever, it's a lively and really good discussion where you often learn a bit more afterwards.
Yeah.
okay.
Right? But when you're doing it, you only learn more if there's somebody in the room who knows more about it generally.
True.
But you're in this state now where you're open to even more things you haven't thought of, but you've at least contemplated and thought for yourself first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So like everyone do their homework and then discuss on a deeper level.
Yeah,
maybe?
but even then you've got to be careful, don't you? Sometimes we give you homework, but you notice we don't actually assess your homework.
Yep.
We just made some suggestions about
Okay.
doing something, but we didn't assess it in this weekend. We didn't assess it at all. Why did we do that? Because your homework is for you. It's for you. Now, in some groups we have said, what did you learn? And there's been things listed, and we did that for a reason too, so that some other people might be able to see, I didn't think of that, and I didn't think of that, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's where a group is handy.
Okay.
Yeah.
To raise things with you that you didn't think of.
Cool.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
all right. Forward.
Susie.
Would it be helpful for us to take our chair and put it somewhere to
Yeah, we'll talk about
alleviate some
pack
of
up
that?
in a sec. Yeah. Is there any other questions before we get to
No,
that?
that's it.
Yep. Just so Max.
Yep.
And then across to
John,
John.
I think, is it? Yep.
I'm wondering if you want to talk about, I'm interested about plans at God's Way, what you guys are planning for in the future.
I don't know
think
if we
we're
got
out
the
of
time
time.
to do that.
Yeah.
It's already 4:30 and we've got to be out of here.
Can I encourage everyone, if you haven't looked at the display out there for God's Way and seen the projects that are going on, and also you can subscribe to the blog on the God's Way website, which is lots of information there and given quarterly now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there, normally they list our plans, so we have future plans that are generally listed, not the longer term ones, but the shorter term ones. We do sometimes at a group like this, when we've got some time near the end of the group, we do talk about that, and maybe that's something for next year, that we talk about some of our plans.
I know some people are interested in potential learning centres in this area. We feel like that's all still in its infancy.
Yeah, you're 10 years away from it.
Yeah. And it's going to start with some of you guys going through this sincere process, receiving some of God's love. Then, wow, we can get some things done. Before
we have
that,
our ideas, of course, about
Yes.
what, where, and all those things, which we're happy to discuss.
Of course.
But we do feel we don't want to put the cart before the horse, as the saying would go. We want to make sure that the very first thing that we need is people, and you're the people.
If you want to be.
And if you want to be,
Yeah.
and you know that's going to require your development and your removal of sin in order for it to happen. So you're the people. We're working with you already to try to develop enough, help you develop enough to get to a stage where you're ready for one. Because the whole point of a centre, a learning centre, is to teach other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make sense, Max?
Yep.
We will discuss those things. You will see them in different discussions, but we're not going to be able to do it right
Not
now.
enough time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yep.
If you just pass along to John. Yeah.
So from what I understand that you spoke about, I don't know if it was yesterday or earlier today, as we meet again, what you're contemplating, planning for next year is like an alternating, first beginning in San Diego in May.
Yes.
Is that a total
Yes.
of 5 days? Where 2 days?
It'll be a 4-day sort of more formal event, and there may be other days where we do these introductory things for new people to come along. So if they want to come along with you, you know, where you bring along 3 other people who are friends and they want to, you know, and let it be their event.
Yes.
That's the kind of events we're looking at.
That's the introductory events.
Yeah.
And be aware...
So at least 2 days of that in San Diego?
Yeah, yep. Can we just say about the introductory events? Those events are for the new people. So if you come and you've watched 75 videos and you're like, yeah, I'm going to get my personal question answered here, you know, that's not the purpose of those events.
Got it.
But the 4-day event will be spread over 5 days.
5 days. Okay,
so
good.
Saturday, Sunday, Monday off. Tuesday, Wednesday, optional if you want to come. If you have time, you could come for Tuesday and not Wednesday, Wednesday, not Tuesday, whatever you want to do there.
Fabulous.
Or if you can just make Saturday, Sunday.
So fabulous. So then a month later, you'll traverse to this area.
Correct.
And have what, another
We're
4-day,
not
a
sure
3-day?
yet. We're not sure yet about what the other area will be every time we alternate.
Okay.
We're considering running what we call a humility and practice event, which is like going out into the community, doing some loving things, getting some feedback while you're doing it, that kind of thing, something practical.
Are you being humble? Are you being diligent, truthful?
And we're also considering maybe running anything up to a 5-day event. So we're still in the planning stage of that. It depends on how much time we have left over and things like that. So there's a number of different factors we have to consider there, and we haven't solidified that yet. But that will be mid-June.
Mid-June, okay,
Mid-June.
good. Well, thank you for, I'm impressed and I'm actually moved by your ability to think forward. I'm like, you know, he's like, what do they got planned, you know? We're watching all these videos from Portugal and, you know, Nova Scotia, and then this experience was extremely rich because I felt, having watched the videos, taking to your point that they're not as powerful, then here you are in person, and you're also now mentioning that you're, as we speak, planning next year. It's just very impressive.
Yeah.
And thank you.
We plan hundreds of years in advance. So for us, 1 year is just like, you know, but yeah.
What's 8 months? No,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And
just at the back.
Up back there, yeah.
Losing people, I think, are the microphones. Yeah.
I just have a quick question about the books, because I downloaded some stuff from, is all 4 volumes, because I'm traveling,
Yep.
and I could ship them to myself.
Yeah.
But I find that I'm learning listening to the audio book, or, you know, downloading and listening it.
Yeah.
That it's actually, I'm absorbing it better, even though I love to read.
Yeah.
So does it really matter? I mean, I could probably find someone that
You'll find if
would
you
like it.
read, you'll probably have a bit more spirit influence on you while you're reading than you will listening to an audiobook.
Okay.
That's just a general thing, because the spirits know that while you're listening, you're probably doing something else, and therefore you're quite distracted. So
but I do fall asleep, just like when I read.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Something else, including sleeping. You know, like, at the end of the day, that's not a very effective form of learning. You really want to, from our opinion, is that you're best being wide awake when you come to read the messages.
Carve out a time.
Yeah, we suggest starting in the morning, you know, when you're fresh. Just because the course of the day you get tireder and you get more exhausted, and you end up wandering, your mind wanders and other things like that,
Yes,
because
it
of
does.
different things going on in your life. You're going to have a far stronger impact if you read them, for sure.
Okay.
But bearing that in mind, there's no harm while you drive along a car listening to an audiobook of them or whatever. But it's highly unlikely under those circumstances that you're going to apply it to your day-to-day life, I would suggest.
Okay.
If you can't take them with you, you could leave them. I'm going to post on mary.divinetruth.com PDF files that you could download and print for yourself
read
if you
that way.
want to read a
There's
physical
that,
thing.
and there's
that's
also
a lot of stuff, though.
we do
It's a lot
have
of
some
printing.
excess books that are with Paddy, and we're very happy to pay for postage to send them to you.
Yep.
So
That's okay. I can.
that's fine. Where if you want to get some books and you don't know where to get them from, and what we're trying to do now is make sure that every place that we go to does have a bit of a supply of them already there, ready to deliver, to give to people, you know.
Well, and
because if you have friends and they want a set, it'd be nice to tell them exactly where to get it from, and they can.
Well, the libraries are very open to that. That's where I've heard a lot. I've gotten a lot of free spiritual books, tapes, all that.
Yeah, that's true too.
And so I was excited when you mentioned the library, because I'm very active with helping kids go to the library.
Yeah, yeah.
So
no, we want to see them everywhere.
Yeah.
We want to see them everywhere.
Yeah, I would.
As I said, they're the highest channeled material received on earth, and it's good for people to have an experience of them.
What I love about books
hear
is
that.
it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity physically in front of you, but you have to seek it out. You have to engage with it through your use of your will. It's far more active than just passively watching a video or listening to an audio. You must engage and pick it up, and that's why books are powerful, in my opinion. And when you have a book of this caliber, it's even, that
contains a lot of truth.
Yeah.
A lot of God's truth. And the other thing, obviously, Mary and I have had some discussions about different messages, and our intention is to have some more.
Yeah, there is a short playlist on our YouTube channel, our main channel, which is Paget Message Discussions. I'm almost positive we discussed the message from John about how to discern the truth.
Not completely, because in a few hours you can't discuss everything, but it's like with a lot of the things we discuss, we're not having with you a complete discussion on the subject. It's a discussion tailored to where we feel the audience is at the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, great. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Straight up behind you.
If you just pass it behind you there. Thank you to everyone who's been a mic runner this weekend.
Yeah.
Thanks. So I actually have another question, but speaking about the libraries, I took an extra set, and I am spending more time in the Library of Congress.
Yep.
So I would like to actually deposit it over there too, if it's okay with you guys, first of all. Because it was amazing seeing it. But my question was a logistic. I came in a little bit late, so I know that you guys were talking about logistics this morning, so I might have missed it. Yeah. I was wondering about the Wednesday, whether it's still on, and if it is on.
We haven't mentioned that.
Yeah, I would
Mary
like to.
did say, however, Mary did say that she was going to email everyone. So remember, she said she'll email all of you, whether you come or not. We're expecting about 30 of you, because that's who put up their hand. But she's going to email all of you, because it's a lot easier to send out a group email from Humanitex, our event platform, than it is to send out one by one. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So rather than create another
So all the
mailing
details
list.
about Wednesday will be in that email, which Mary will probably send out
tomorrow.
Well, we're going to need a good sleep tomorrow. Because we're going to be a midnight night for us tonight. So
yeah, we've got to pack up
this room. This room and everything, and then get back and then do all the copies afterwards. So tomorrow's a rest day for us. So it'll probably be Tuesday.
But just briefly, it's going to be 9 o'clock at Paddy's home, and
the address will be given.
The address will be given. You'll need to park. There'll probably be someone at the gate sort of directing your parking, because we're going to work on the driveway, so you can't park in the driveway like you did last year.
It's going to have to be on the side of the road.
Just be on the side of the road. Yeah,
okay, I still remember that parkway from last year, actually. Yeah. So the second question I wanted to ask is, I'm going to be here, and I would love to connect with the people that are staying for this. Maybe they're in the area and they would like to also to connect.
Over the next couple of days?
Yes, Wednesday, because I'm going to be here till Thursday, so it would be great to
How many of you will be here
people.
till Thursday? Just put up your hands. There you go. That's how many are going to be here till Thursday.
So if you want to hang out with each other, look around.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah,
yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
So just look around and meet up with each other. We don't actually organise these kind of things, because we cannot guarantee what your condition is. So we can't guarantee the influences that will be present when you do meet up with each other. You follow me?
So we encourage you to be discerning and self-responsible and all of those things.
That's right.
To Anna's point earlier, it would be lovely if we had more of a kind of an open setting where everyone could stay on site and just catch up casually and decide, oh, do I want to spend more time with that person, and then go to dinner if you wanted or something. But, at the moment, we don't have such a facility.
No.
I'm not so sure whether that's good since I'm demanding.
Yes, well, that is the feedback.
Partly.
So that'd be my lesson for today.
Hopefully you'll attract some brothers and sisters
This is
who
telling you how
telling
demanding you are. Yeah. So you have some reflection about it. Yeah. Someone being truthful with you about it. Oh, I find you too overbearing.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Vijay.
Can we get a picture with you?
Can we get a picture with us? Well, I know some of people
why didn't you ask us on Friday when we look far
when we
fresh?
look fresh. I said to someone, do it in the morning when we look fresh, you know, like...
Okay, I'll wait till next year, no problem.
It's like the last day of the last event.
That's right.
No, you can have a picture if you want.
After, with this event, Mary and I have got quite a bit of pack up to do, and it has to be us that do it because we're going to be using the equipment next time. So we can't, and a lot of it has to be treated very gently and considerately, and many of you are not gentle enough for us yet to do all of that. So we need to do it ourselves. So if you can just be mindful after we stop that we're going to have to go through a pack-up process that's going to go another 3 to 4 hours, and bear that in mind rather than exhausting us further by what you want to talk
Having
to
long
us
conversations with us about things.
So we're happy to give you a hug and say
We'd love to
see
give
ya.
you a hug, say bye.
But a longer conversation is not going to be possible. Make sense?
Yeah, so chairs, if we stack them, I think you could almost stack them from the end to the middle. So how many?
I'd probably prefer them in the middle there somewhere.
That's what I'm saying.
Because
So
I'm
from
going to
the
need
end
to
of the
lay
row.
out cable and whatever.
You just want them about 8 high, 6...
No, they
how
only
many?
go 6 high, I think.
6 high. So 6 high, basically in the middle of the room. So if
Over
you,
in that section, perhaps. Michael, you want to?
Question.
Yep.
Yvette wanted to know if you'll be speaking after the work on Wednesday?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Most probably. Well, it happens organically.
Yes.
So if nobody wants to hear, then we don't speak.
It's never happened, but
It's not happened yet.
Everyone might be cranky with us and say,
that's
I'm
right.
going home.
That's right.
Yep.
Okay, guys, thanks for your time, And we'll see you again.